Good morning, happy Wednesday. So today we're going to continue the levels of organization in the body. This is part 2. It's continuing from lesson 13.6. The first part is just my video going over some of the background information that you really should know. It's going to help you out with the body system since that's what we're going to get into next for the remainder of the year. This is where your agenda is going to be posted in a little while once the video is done. So yesterday we started talking about the different levels of organization. We discussed that we're made of individual cells. Some organisms are made of just one cell and some are made of multiple cells like humans. Those cells together can build tissues working together. Cells working together to build tissues. Then multiple tissues can build an organ like the stomach that we're seeing here. Then different organs can come together and build an organ system like the digestive system, which is used to break down our food and is made up of the mouth, salivary glands, the esophagus, the stomach, both the small and the large intestine, and other organs like the liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. And then multiple organ systems come together and make one whole organism. That's at least in the case of multicellular organisms. So let's start with level 1. So level 1 is the most basic structure found in any cell. We've discussed it already in the sense that this unit of structure and function has organelles if it's a certain type of cell, and a nucleus. It has genetic information. They all have different functions, and there are different types of them. So there are blood cells, there are nerve cells, there are bone cells, there are muscular cells. We have so many different types that we can talk about in the case of a human being and other multicellular organisms. However, I just want to bring up that there are two types of cells. So the first type of cell is a prokaryotic cell. The prokaryotic cell doesn't have a nucleus or specialized organelles. However, a eukaryotic cell has a nucleus and specialized organelles. So the different examples of that is, first, the prokaryotic cell. We have a bacterial cell right here. The bacterial cell has no nucleus. It barely has any organelles, except for it has ribosomes to make proteins since they're so important. However, we also have the eukaryotic cells that I just discussed that have all those organelles that we just learned about for the first part of chapter 13. In the case here, we have the plant cell where there's a cell wall, the cell membrane, the cytoplasm, the nucleus, the vacuole, the endoplasmic reticulum, the ribosomes, the mitochondria, the chloroplasts, and the Golgi apparatus. Same thing goes here for the animal cell, except there's no cell wall and there's no chloroplast. These are very complicated types of cells. Now, the thing is, the bacterial cell usually most likely will live on its own. Sometimes they can live in colonies, but they don't work together very closely. But these cells are very complex in the sense that they must work together with similar other cells to make one big organism made of trillions of them work together. So that brings me up, never mind, 1 second. There are different, as I said, there are different ones that have to work together. So there are nerve cells that work together in the nervous system. There are muscle cells that work together in the muscular system, and there are 3 types of those. There's the type that you find in the skeletal muscle that helps you lift things. There's a smooth muscle that we find in the digestive tract that helps move food along during digestion. And then there's also the cardiac muscle that we find in the heart. We have bone cells. We have reproductive cells like sperm and egg. We have different types of blood cells, such as the red blood cells, the white blood cells that we're seeing here, just to name a few. Now, notice they all have very different structures to them because they all carry out very different functions. For example, the nerve cells have little parts that come off of it that send signals. So they branch out, so to speak, so that signals can go in all different directions throughout the body, from the brain to all the nerves that go to every single piece of your body. Here we also have the striated muscle because they're able to contract and expand, and you're able to lift different things. The smooth muscle, since we have to have a continuous muscle that moves food through the digestive system, every single structure here has a reason for it, and it has to do with what the job and function is. So we have the level 2 tissues also, so all of these cells have to come together and work together to build a tissue. So these nerve cells will work together to make up the nervous tissue. There are four basic types of tissue in a human: connective, epithelial, muscle, and nerve cell. Nerve tissues, I mean. And then there are plant tissues. There's the vascular tissue, the ground tissue, and the dermal tissue. I'm going to take you through those really quickly. So the connective tissue has a description, and that's its function. So all of these cells in connective tissues come together to help separate groups of other tissues from each other and connect different tissues to each other. We also have the epithelial. Now, epithelial sounds like the word epidermis, which we associate with skin. The epithelial tissue covers the surfaces of organs, so it does include skin. It also can include the trachea, the reproductive tract, the digestive tract, since that is one big long tube through the body that food moves through as it's being broken down. We have muscle tissues, and remember, there are 3 types of muscle cells, and the muscle tissues help comprise of the different muscles in the body, and they are very specialized depending on their function, such as the type that helps move food through the body, the skeletal muscle that helps us lift and move things and helps move our skeleton. And then we also have the nervous tissue, which we find in the brain and the spinal cord, and the nerves that run through our arms, legs, and other extremities, which are the peripheral nerves. And these send signals from our brain to our to all the other organs and tells us and gives signals for how we should react to stimulus. So, for example, if we touch something hot, that there's a stimulus sent to the brain, and then the brain sends a signal for us to move our hand back away from the hot surface. The plantar tissues are the dermal, the ground, and the vascular. So the dermal covers the outside of the plant. It's on the surface. The ground tissue is where most of the major metabolism and metabolic functions occur. And then we also have the vascular tissue, and that's very similar to how humans have blood vessels, only instead of blood running through the vascular tissue of a plant, there's water, minerals, and nutrients that move through the plant that are necessary for its growth and to help with making a food during things like photosynthesis. Next, all of those different types of tissues, whether it's animal or plant, work together to build different organs. So in the case of humans, we have different organs such as the heart, the brain, the skin, the liver, the kidneys, the lungs. We have so many different organs, and those organs have to come together to build an organ system. So we have multiple different organ systems that we're going to discuss. So the more organs you have working together to perform, you have organs that work together to perform different functions. And those functions are very important to our body. So we have a circulatory system, a nervous system, a skeletal system. The human body has approximately 11 different organ systems that perform all these different functions that I'm going to take you through. So here's one that I've been discussing this whole time, the digestive system. The digestive system starts at the mouth, which is not pictured, and includes the salivary glands, which help release saliva and an enzyme that breaks down carbohydrates into sugars. The food then moves into the esophagus, into the stomach, where the stomach acid neutralizes it and breaks down more food using different enzymes. And then the majority of food breaks down in the small intestine, which is here in the middle. It's small because it has a smaller diameter than the large intestine, and this is where the majority of enzymes do its work to break down the food. And then the large intestine, where excess water is reabsorbed before the waste products are released through the anus at the end of the large intestine. So overall, we have uh, we have this one system that does different roles and different jobs, but leads to the breaking down of the food, which is the absorption of the nutrients that we need from the food. There are other systems that we have here. So one of the systems is the digestive system, which I just went over. There's the urinary or the excretory system as we know it that helps remove metabolic waste from the blood and then releases it through the urine. We have the respiratory system, which helps take in oxygen and then releases carbon dioxide as a waste product. Um, let's see, we have the skeletal system, which is there to help protect our organs and give us structure and store calcium for us, just to name a few functions. We have the muscular system, which helps with movement of materials and movement of the body. We have the integumentary system, which includes the skin, the hair, and the nails, which protects all of our organs. The cardiovascular or circulatory system, which moves blood around the body, carrying oxygen and nutrients and removing waste products such as urea, which makes up the urine and is a metabolic waste, and it also removes carbon dioxide from our cells before it builds up. Let's see, we have the endocrine system, which are made up of different glands in the body and release hormones that cause changes in the body. For example, adrenaline. When you release adrenaline, you go into a fight or flight response that causes you either to run from danger or stand up against it, depending on what the danger is. We have the nervous system, which is made up of the brain, the spinal cord, and the peripheral nerves, which send and receive messages that are very quick messages, causes very quick reactions compared to the endocrine system. We have the lymphatic and the immune system, which work together to which are two different systems actually, but they work together to fight different infections. The reproductive systems help us with creating new life. So we have the female reproductive system, which makes eggs, and the male reproductive system, which makes sperm that fertilizes the egg, and the female reproductive system grows the embryo and fetus for the 9 months that a human develops. Each organism is different. And then we have level 5, an organism. So when all of those organ systems work together and they work properly, we end up with an organism that is able to maintain balance in its body. And that allows us to function as one whole organism. So all of these different cells, tissues, organs, and organ systems are able to react to stimuli, whether there's a change outside our body that has us react, or a change in the body that needs us to react, such as an infection. We have single-celled organisms where they're not made of multiple cells, but they're organelles, if they have any, and function much like our organs do to help perform those different functions as well, such as taking in food, breaking it down, rebuilding different necessary molecules and such. So this is just a recap. Smallest unit that anything living or non-living is made of is an atom. Those atoms make up molecules. Those molecules then make up the different types of cells. As we saw, there are different types of cells, such as animal, plant, bacterial. Animal cells can have nerve cells, blood cells, etc. Those cells then work together to make up tissues in the human, which are things such as the nervous, the epithelial, the connective tissue, the muscular tissues. Different in plants, as I said. I'm just going to take you through human for now. Those tissues then work together to build up the brain. So, for example, multiple types of nervous tissue make up the brain. The brain then comes together into the organ system that we see that is made of the brain, the spinal cord, and the peripheral nerves. Along with other types of organ systems, besides the nervous system, we then end up with one whole organism. Here in the plant cells then make up different types of tissues, such as the dermal tissues, the vascular, and the ground tissues. We then have an organ such as the leaf, an organ system which is the stem, the shoot, the leaf, and then we have the whole organism such as the tree. If you have any questions, we will be in office hours starting at 12 and ending at 1. You have a worksheet to complete where all you have to do is put the proper word into the text box, which you can do right here.